Okay, here you see some examples of chip carving. And chip carving is basically done with a knife, making 3 cuts in triangular shapes or 6-sided cuts. So you're creating knife cut after knife cut after knife cut. So it's almost, you almost get into a rhythm. You'll create one cut, another cut, slice, chip comes out. One cut, another cut, slice, the chip comes out. What this is doing is giving you practice in handling the knife, making precise cuts, and knife control. And it's just a simple knife exercise which looks very, very ornate, but it's actually very simple to do. Some of the essential tools that I'm going to use for laying out the designs is a divider, a compass, a ruler, which is a carpenter's square, and French curves. Here I have a practice board. And this is really kind of a good idea to try some of these cuts on a practice board before you do your project. And this is a piece of basswood, and I have the grain curving so that I'm writing on the top of the grain. I start out with making a couple simple parallel lines. These are 1/2 inch width. Usually chip carving designs are small, so 1/2 inch is good to practice with. Square off my ends. And then from here, I'm going to go in 1/2 inch increments. Okay. And this is going to give me 1/2 inch squares. And the diagonal line, we'll do 3 or 4 of these. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to divide this one into quarters. I want to divide those in half from the top, so I'm going to the 1/4 inch. Now I'm going to go from corner to the center. Actually, laying out chip carving almost takes as long as it does to carve it. But you want to be precise, so take your time. Don't rush it. It does take a little bit of time to get these things all nice, because this is going to dictate where your cuts are going to be, and you want to try to keep your pattern very symmetrical. Okay, now you want to try to get comfortable where you are, because you're going to be here a while. It does take some time. Now, the most important thing about chip carving is trying to keep the angle of the knife consistent. If you move the angle of the knife, your chips are going to be deeper and shallower, and you're not going to have a good chip carving design. So laying the knife on almost a 45-degree angle for this one, I'm going to come and make a diagonal cut, writing the line. Now I'll come and make my side cut, angling the blade, trying to keep the same consistency I made with the first cut. And I'll come from the corner and I sink the knife just slightly deeper into the center, because the center is going to be deeper. Okay, just kind of clean up the end, and that's the first chip. Okay, now I'll do the top part. Again, you want to try to keep the peaks kind of pointed. You don't want to flat, so on the top of your cut. So I'm going to try to come very close to that pencil line and make my top cut. Stop at the line. And this is knife control. You don't want to have your cuts go past your pencil lines. And pop the chip. Now with the cuts that I made with the knife, we first made the center cut, which I start shallow with the tip of the blade, and as I get closer to the point of the triangle, the knife is going deeper into the wood, and then I'm slowly pulling the depth of the blade back out. If you don't do that, you could pop the corners by keeping this deep and keeping this one deep. You could pop the corners off of your design, and then it's going to look really sloppy and somewhat amateurish, and that's not what you want. I start shallow with the tip, come deeper with the blade, and then I stop, and then I pull the blade out. So we'll try it again. Okay, And you'll notice how I keep my thumb against the back of this blade. This is also giving me a lot of control. I've seen people chip carve and they use their hands like this, and I just don't believe you have as much control as if you're close to the blade, using the thumb to help guide it. Start shallow with the tip. Now I can't get my thumb over here, it's kind of awkward for me, so I use my thumb here as a rest, and I pull the knife with my fingers. And I'm going to sink the blade a little bit deeper with the tip, but not with the back of the blade. I'm stopping right at that pencil line, right at the point of this little triangle. And I spin the board around because it's more comfortable for me, and I can see what I'm doing by keeping basically the knife in front of my chest, and I can basically control the knife much better. A little fuzzy area down here. I want to come back and do more of a cleanup cut, just to keep that nice and crisp. We continue. Drawing the knife, stopping it at the pencil line. Sinking the tip in so that it's going to meet at the bottom of the triangle. And after a while, they'll start coming out nice and clean and crisp. And you can see this is just, 1, 2, 3, remove the chip. 1, 2, 3, remove the chip. Oh, now we got 3 good chips all in a row now. And you have about 6,000 more of these cuts and you'll be able to cover a postage stamp. Now we have 4 triangles intersecting. So again, we're doing the same cut, only smaller. Start making my smaller triangles. Now these are going to be a little shallower than I was making these because now I'm dealing with a smaller surface area. And get that little gerb out of there. Because there's more wood on this side than here, I want to do this cut first, and I want to put the pressure of the blade into the thicker part of the wood and try to keep it away from the thinner part because I don't want to fracture the edges. And as you become very ornate with the designs and stuff, you really want to make sure that you keep a nice crispness. So thinking about exactly where the fragile part of the wood is going to be, I try to put my first cut against that. So here is going to be a fragile spot on this wall, so I'm going to take and make this cut first and put some of the pressure of the blade, because of the width of the blade, it's going to wedge a little bit, so I want to kick that over to a more sturdy, more beefier part of the board. Now we have 2 fragile areas. So with this one, I want to come and do my fragile ridges first so that I don't have a tendency of cracking. If I did this one first, the pressure of the blade, it might chip out a piece because the grain is going horizontal. So anything that might want to chip is going to chip that way, and because there's less wood to hold it. So I do my fragile areas first, and then again, come in and take, and what seems to be a very complex design, broken down to 1 chip at a time, it's not as difficult as it may seem. So if you can make 1 triangular cut, you can make 1,000 triangular cuts. If you can make 1 spiral, you can make 1,000 spirals. Okay, so we have several very basic chip carving cuts. So like you see, carving these little triangles can get somewhat repetitious. So that's my practice piece. But It's a little too straight and narrow for me. I like curves. I like to have a little fun. So I've had enough of this kind of stuff. This is give you an idea of what you're going to do. Now we're going to have a little fun. We're going to carve some rosettes, some curved lines, some circles. Going to intersect some circles. Get into a little flow and a little rhythm. Again, I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to make a horizontal line. I'm going to set my compass at, let's just go an inch. All right, so I'm going to just pick any place, make a circle. And where it intersects my horizontal line, I'll make another circle. And guess what? We're going to make a couple other circles because that's how you lay out rosettes. If you see what's going on in the center, we're starting to create some petals. Okay, they intersect right here, these bottom circles. Okay, this is the last circle I need to create a very simple rosette design. I'm going to take the chip carving knife and I'm going to start to just curve my cuts to follow the contour of the radius, going a little deeper towards the center, shallower towards the points, keeping the knife at a fairly consistent angle. Okay, and careful at the point, let the chip come out. Now guess what? We get to do all of them. Come in shallow with the tip, get a little bit deeper towards the center of the petal, and draw the knife out. All right, now I have these negative spaces within the circle, so I'm going to take the tip of the blade, come in fairly shallow. Now this is a wide berth between the points, so I'm going to lay the knife a little flatter, just so I'm not going to have to make a inch deep cut to remove this inner part between the petals. So now as I come and make my outside parameter cut, it should meet. I should be deep enough that the chip will come right out. Oh, I love when a plan comes together. So the cuts that we make on this big one are the same cuts you'd make on a smaller rosette design. On this, my practice board, basically these are the petals that I just cut. This pie shape was actually right in here, and it's just that I had put another radius up at the top to break up the design and make it more intricate. Now that I've had some time to warm up on the practice pieces, this is a small box I found at a friend's carving supply store. It's out of basswood, same wood as I was using for my practice pieces, but I laid out a little bit more of an intricate design. So I have the spiral laid out, and is that right in the center, I'm going to make a stop cut. And angle the wall inward. And start at the point and run the pencil line. Now because this is a smaller circle, I don't have to go as deep with the cut. Come against the fragile side, pushing the blade into the thicker part of the board. A lot of people will do the stop cut first, but I think it's a waste of time. So I'll kind of show you how you do it with a stop cut. You could decide for yourself which way you like best. Okay, and this is the last cut I'm going to make, and I should have my spiral complete. Now I'm going to look and just make sure all those little chips are kind of removed. Okay, now I have all these intersecting circles, and it doesn't really matter which side you start from. It's just that 3-cut triangle with just a little curve. And this is kind of an intricate design, but they all seem to be somewhat intricate. Just take them one chip at a time. Okay, let's see. We get this big arc going here for my perimeter of this circle. So I'm using my thumb as a pivot point to try to make as smooth of a cut so it's not choppy looking. I'll use my thumb on my right hand now to make my outside cut as almost a pivot point as I draw my hand around the cut. Again, you don't want to overcut this and have so much force that the knife is actually going to slide across and mar the surface of the box. Just come out just like an orange peel. Now we can start doing some of these inner spiral. Okay, now where all these lines are coming to a vanishing point, you want to be careful that you don't chunk out where they meet. I want to skip around and do a little bit on the spider web design that I have here. Now these cuts are fairly wide, so I'm going to go a little bit deeper with them. And as I progress to smaller chips, I'm going to make them a little shallower. So after this is completed, you do the same thing with the other corners and then continue on finishing off your intersecting circles. Now, if you want to leave it that way, that's fine. If you want to add something else to it, by possibly just laying some French curves of these around and seeing what they might look like. I don't know, maybe just have a little something like that. It's really up to you. It really depends on your own taste and your own wants and how much time you want to spend on each carving. Another way you can do some chip carving is very simply drawing a shape or a form. This one I chose a frog, and with very tight chip carving techniques, outline the entire frog. I want to keep my cuts tight and close to the lines I put on, so I'll use a detail knife for doing this. And what I want to do is just start to outline with the tip of the blade, and I'm just going to run the pencil lines, keeping my knife at a slight angle. Okay, it's not a real wide angle, I'm not really low to the carving, I'm keeping it up somewhat high because I want my lines close and tight together. This is a really good project for a beginner. It doesn't have the regimentation that traditional chip carving has. It still gives you practice with knife control, using the tip, making clean cuts, and the project's a little fun. Not many people have a frog carved on a box, or a songbird with berries, or whatever you want to do with them. See, very tight, close wood chips come out. And just continue around. I'm just outlining the body and the head right now. You can see I use my thumb to kind of help inch the blade through the wood. It's a very shallow, close V-cut that I'm creating. But I also want to get a little bit of depth so it has some definition to it. And it's not just a scratch. Now again, I'm using the tip to just outline the areas. I'm not going to hollow out the eye. All I'm doing is just outlining everything that I drew on. Now, if you try this, this is also a good project for doing a shallow relief. You basically start the same way, except you go deeper with your stop cuts, and you can start rounding some of the areas off, and round the frog off. But at this point, I just want to chip carve it. And be careful when you're going around the toes that you don't undermine them by putting too much point underneath some of these tight little areas, so you pop the toe off. So I'm very conscious about how deep the tip of the blade is actually going into the wood. And it just comes with practice, getting to know your tools. I want to check it all over, make sure I got everything that I wanted to get. Okay, and we are finished.